Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a recent reads video. So I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books that I read in February and March, so let's just get started. Starting off with February, I read 7 books. The first one being Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I listened to this on audiobook. I'm not going to talk about how I felt about this book because I read it for a specific reading vlog and I don't want to spoil my thoughts for it, but I will tell you guys what this book is kind of about. Do I remember what it's about? Oh no. So, my memory is a little bit hazy on what this one's about, but from what I remember, it's about this daughter of the Pirate King. I don't remember what her name is, but she is like the daughter of this Pirate King, and she acts as a spy on this like other pirate's ship to like get information. She's looking for like a map of something and she wants to steal it from them. That's as much as I remember. My mind is really bad when it comes to summaries of books, but that's basically what it's about. But anyways, the next book that I read is the one that I'm most excited to talk about for this entire video, and that is Counting Down With You by Tashi Bouillon. I was lucky enough to receive an ARC of this book from the publisher Inkyard Press, so thank you so much to them for sending this to me. So if you've been on my channel at all, like on any of my social medias recently, you know how much I love this book. I have a whole spoiler-free reading vlog for this book that I just uploaded if you guys want to go check it out. This book releases on May 4th. This book is seriously so good, you're not gonna want to miss it. But if you don't know what this book is about, we're basically following our main character Karina Ahmed, and her parents are taking a like month-long trip to Bangladesh, leaving her and her brother at home for like the first time, I think. So Karina is planning on spending this time just chilling out and relaxing, spending the time away from her parents, but she ends up being roped into this fake dating facade with the school's resident bad boy Ace Clyde, and before the 28 days are up, she kind of has to decide what she wants to do when her parents come back. Does she want to kind of follow what they want her to do and follow that path, or does she want to maybe take her own path, which could lead to disappointing her parents? And honestly, I think it's one of my new favorite books. Like, I will be honestly so shocked if this does not make it onto my favorite books of the year list this year. I had like really random high expectations going into this book. Okay, this is Tashi Bouillon's debut novel, and so obviously I never read anything from her before, and I typically don't get like really hyped up for debut books, like definitely not in the way that I did for this book. But I just saw it all over Twitter, followed the author, like became obsessed, and randomly I just got really high expectations for this book, and I was kind of nervous in the back of my mind that it wouldn't live up to those expectations. I was worried that I had just like hyped it up too much in my head and that there was no way it could possibly live up to these expectations I had set for it. But somehow my expectations were like exceeded, and I don't know how Tashi did it, because I thought that like my expectations were like ultra high, like way too high for any possible human to like meet, you know? But somehow Tashi did it. This book is literally phenomenal. This book was literally everything that I wanted from it and more. I knew going into it that there was anxiety rep in the story, but I didn't know the extent of it. I didn't know that it was the main character dealing with it, and I didn't know that it would kind of not be at the forefront of the story, but it's definitely present and talked about. And you guys can go watch my vlog, but it made me quite emotional at points because I just connected to it. I wasn't really going into this book expecting amazing anxiety rep or expecting to connect to it so much in that way, but that is what I got. I say this all the time, but every single book that I read that has anxiety rep in it is like a little piece of myself. Each one is different, and each one kind of completes this like little part of my like anxiety. I don't know where I'm going with this, but like basically every book that I read with anxiety rep feels like this little piece of my soul that craves that feeling of being seen and represented in a book. I don't know what I'm saying right now, but this one was no exception. It just did anxiety representation so well, and in a way that I hadn't seen before, I feel like. And I really connected with some of the passages about anxiety, which it just felt so nice and validating. I absolutely adored the two characters of Ace and Karina. I loved them separately, I loved them together, and I was also able to connect to aspects of both of them, which is something that I always appreciate when I'm reading a book. And also their relationship was just so fun to read about. Like, it was so pure and beautiful. The fake dating trope, I've come to realize, is my absolute favorite trope in novels. Even in movies, like if you've got some sort of media that has fake dating in it, I want it, please and thank you. But I feel like this one did it slightly differently than I've ever really seen it before, and it was really, really satisfying to read about. And honestly, my favorite part of their relationship was just kind of seeing the way that they cared for each other and the way that they supported each other. I loved seeing Ace and how he kind of treated Karina and his like just utter respect for her and support, and like he was so caring of her as well. And he is the kind of boy that like I wish I had when I was like a teenager. Honestly, I still wish I had a guy like him, you know, like just somebody who is so unbelievably like accepting of who you are and is willing to learn your boundaries and to make sure they don't cross a line. And he is just literally the sweetest cinnamon bun ever. I literally am obsessed with him, and I love them together. I think that they work super, super well together, and I think just in general the whole relationship was really well done. There's also a lot of discussions around family in this book and not so good relationships with parents, which I also really appreciated. There's also a lot of talk of her culture in this book, and Tashi has said that she changed how Karina kind of felt toward her culture a little bit from this arc to the final copy, so I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't know exactly what changes she made, but just know there is a lot of talk about culture and how you deal with it and connection with it and relationships with parents. There's a lot of that. But as you can see from all of the tabs in this book and how long I've been talking about it, it is 100% a new favorite book, and I am absolutely obsessed with it, and I think that all of you need to read it. Please and thank you. It is amazing. The next book I don't want to talk about for too long because it is a reread that I've read multiple times, but it is Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is the third and final book in the To All the Boys Lara Jean series. So if you don't know what To All the Boys is about, so the first book follows our main character Lara Jean, and whenever she gets a crush on a boy, she will write him a love letter to kind of get her feelings out and to move on, but she won't send them out. She'll just seal them and put them away in a hat box, but it's just her way of coping with those feelings. But then one day those letters do get sent out, and Lara Jean has to deal with the repercussions of them and having to deal with the boys that they were sent out to, and she ends up falling into a fake dating facade with one of them to avoid one of the other boys thinking that she likes them in the present. And it's just such a cute book, and I love the entire series. I definitely think that like my ranking of the series is like To All the Boys, Always and Forever Lara Jean, and then P.S. I Still Love You. And I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people don't like this book, but I personally really, really enjoy it. But the reason why I reread just this one and not the other ones is because the movie came out in February. I loved rereading this book. I love being able to properly see Lara Jean and Peter in their relationship and how they're dealing with it and maturing, and I love this whole book. I also really enjoyed the movie, which was such a huge relief for me because I really did not like the P.S. I Still Love You movie. Like, I have not watched it since it first came out, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna rewatch it because it's just not good in my opinion. I'm really happy that I reread this book. It was a really fun time, and I also loved the movie. The next book I read is a little bit of a funny one, and it is Julie and the Phantoms, The Edge of Great. So this is the novelization of the Netflix show Julie and the Phantoms, which if you've been on my channel, you know I'm obsessed with this show. I actually have a whole reading vlog for this book if you want to go check it out. It was a really fun video to do. I also have an original book tag that I created with one of my best friends, Peyton Reads, so you should also check that out if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate it if you would do the tag. But if you don't know what Julie and the Phantoms is about, it's basically about these three boys who were in a band together in the 90s, but they ate bad hot dogs one day and they end up dying before they do like this big concert that are going to turn them into stars. And then we jump to present day with our main character Julie, and her mom has died and she's kind of been struggling to connect to music again with her mom being gone. She ends up playing the band's CD in her garage and ends up kind of summoning their ghosts, and then she ends up forming a band with the ghosts. It's really fun. The novelization wasn't like perfect. It did cut down some scenes that I loved from the show, and it did like add some things, but overall it's just like a kid's novelization, you know. Like, I didn't go into it expecting something phenomenal, but it was kind of just like a fun time. And we also got points of views from the other characters. We got points of views from like all of the boys in the band. We got point of views from Julie and Flynn, and it was just a really fun time. So if you like the show, I guess I would recommend this. I mean, it wasn't great, wasn't bad either. It didn't add anything super special superficial, I feel like, to the show, so I don't feel like it's really necessary that you read it. It was just kind of a fun time. The next book I read was Daughter of the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller. This was another audiobook I listened to, and I'm obviously not going to tell you how I felt about the sequel because I'm not even going to tell you what I thought about the first book, so just know I read it. The next book I read was Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the third book in the Raven Cycle Quartet, and this was a reread for me. So if you don't know what the Raven Cycle series is about, I hate describing it because I really don't know how to, but we're basically following this girl named Blue, and her whole family are psychics, and her whole life she's been told that she's gonna kill her true love by kissing him. Then we also follow this group of boys who are called the Raven Boys. It's Gansey, Ronan, Noah, and Adam, and because of Gansey, they are all on the hunt for this like old Welsh king named Glendower, and along the way Blue ends up joining forces with the Raven Boys, and she tries to help them find this like Welsh king. I love this series. I love the world, the atmosphere, and the characters especially. I feel like everyone's favorite part of the series are the characters, and before going into this reread, I thought this book was my favorite. Now, it was always really hard for me to distinguish which book was my favorite because I read the books literally back to back without like taking breaks practically at all, and so it was really hard for me during the first read through of all the books to decipher which one was my favorite, but I always just thought it was this one. But now that like I reread it, I'm not sure that it is. It might be the first book. I'm not entirely sure. I really love that first book. I do still really love this book. I just don't know if it's like quite my favorite. I just love the series, love the characters, and I think it's just a lot of fun. The last book that I read in the month of February was Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant. This is a newer release, just came out this year. I believe it's also Elise Bryant's debut novel, if I'm not mistaken. So in this book, we are following our main character, Tessa, and she's been accepted into this like really cool art school for creative writing, and she's really excited about it. She's always loved to write, but she gets to this school, gets into her like first creative writing class, and she is stuck. No words are coming to her. She has complete and total writer's block, and this has never happened to her before, and she has no idea why it's happening. Her best friend decides that Tessa is unable to write her romance stories because she's never experienced a real life romance. So they scheme to get Tessa to have a real life romance with somebody at her school to hopefully inspire her to write her stories again. I read this book in the span of one day, which I wasn't really expecting. I knew that I would read it fast because contemporaries, if I'm in like a reading mood, I typically can read fairly quickly. I do read a lot of books in a sitting when I'm like really feeling it, you know, but I just wasn't expecting it. Like once I started, I just didn't want to stop. Like I just kind of kept going. I don't even think it was like a conscious decision. I just kept reading. It was just a really easy book to read. It didn't feel like a lot of effort. It was just really easy to fall into. So something that I do love about this book is the representation of writing and writer's block and all of the conversations surrounding that. I love reading about writers, and I feel like there's not enough books about writers, or if there are, it's not like the biggest part of the story, but like this whole book revolves around her wanting to write. I do of course wish we got to see more of her writing, but because this is a book about her dealing with writer's block, it was expected that she wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of writing during the book, but there was a lot of talk about writing, which I did enjoy. I also really loved the conversation about the fear of sharing your work with somebody else, because I definitely feel that very often whenever it comes time to send my book to somebody to read. It is a terrifying thing because, you know, what if they don't like it, you know? So I really enjoyed the conversation surrounding that. See, this is what happens when you read a book months ago and you forgot to make a wrap-up about it, and then you forgot things that happened in the book. There's anxiety representation in this book that I completely forgot about, but apparently I really enjoyed it. I literally don't remember any details about the anxiety rep at this point. Like I didn't write many notes about it, but apparently I did like the anxiety rep. Wasn't expecting for there to be anxiety rep because it was never talked about, but just know there's anxiety rep in this book. There's also a romance in this book, which I did enjoy. I thought it was very like cute and like very pure. It just felt like a very innocent, cute high school romance, which I enjoyed. There is kind of like a love triangle, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, but I did end up liking how it turned out, especially with some of the choices that Tessa decided to make regarding the whole love triangle situation did kind of annoy me, and it kind of had me thinking like, what are you doing? Like, Tessa, like, what is wrong with you kind of throughout the entire book. But it is a young adult novel, obviously. She is like 16 or something, so it is expected that she's gonna make like stupid decisions, so I didn't take it too seriously, but it is just something that like I noticed. And something that I didn't really enjoy was the ending felt a little bit abrupt. I wanted maybe like another chapter or two for the end of the book just to kind of really like settle everything down, I guess. I feel like I just needed a more satisfying resolution to everything that had happened. I feel like because it's a contemporary novel and it is a standalone, that it would have benefited from having just a slightly longer ending, because there's not going to be a next book, you know, like this is all that we're going to get of Tessa's story, and I wanted to know exactly how it wrapped up. I don't really like open-ended endings when it comes to contemporary books, and so that was just kind of something that I wish was a little bit different. I wish we had like at least a paragraph more or like a chapter more. I would have really appreciated that, but it didn't like necessarily affect my overall enjoyment of the book. It just affected it a little bit. The last thing that I'm going to talk about this book that I really did not enjoy, and trigger warning for Harry Potter, I'm going to talk about Harry Potter for a minute. There were a lot of Harry Potter references in this book, and for this book to come out in 2021, I was not expecting Harry Potter references with everything that went down last year with J.K. Rowling, and I think that there would have been enough time in her editing schedule to have cut those things out, because I don't feel like they affected the plot. Since 2020, Harry Potter references are not something that I want to see in books, and I know a lot of other people are not gonna want to see Harry Potter references, and it was a lot in this book. And I feel like something that she did try to do to kind of justify having references in there, she did like subtly mention the J.K. Rowling controversy, but I don't feel like it was enough to like warrant having this many Harry Potter references, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. So I'm sure if it made me uncomfortable, it made somebody else uncomfortable, or will make somebody else uncomfortable. So if you are thinking of reading this book, but you know that reading things about Harry Potter or thinking about Harry Potter will trigger you or upset you, maybe avoid it, which I feel awful saying because it is a good book, but I just don't want anybody to read this and be harmed or not have a good time because of those references. So just go into this mindful if you know that's something that's going to upset you. I thought that it was worth mentioning since it does appear throughout the entire book, and it appears a lot. It's not just like one reference, it's a lot of references. So I just thought that I would mention that. But overall, I did enjoy this book. It was exactly what I was in the mood for at the time that I was reading it, and obviously it was a very quick, fun read. It's not like a favorite book by any means. I do think that I'll reread it one day, but it's not one of my favorite books by any means. And now to get into the books that I read in March. The first one being Moxie by Jennifer Matthew. So I wanted to reread this book for the Netflix adaptation that was coming out, so I can kind of refresh my memory. I had also kind of been wanting to reread the book anyways, so I figured now's as good a time as any. I do really enjoy this book. If you don't know what it is about, we follow our main character Vivian, and she is kind of fed up with the sexist ways of her school, constant dress code checks that really only affect the girls at the school, the inappropriate, rude, sexist comments the boys make. Like, she's just fed up, and so is everybody else. And so she decides to take a page out of her mom's book. Her mom was like a feminist activist person back in the day, so she decides to take a page out of her book and create these feminist zines that she then spreads around the school in hopes that it'll kind of rally all the girls to fight against the sexism going on in their school. So I really enjoyed the conversations in this book surrounding feminism and sexism, and I really specifically enjoyed how the feminism in the school was talked about a lot, particularly with like the dress codes, because that is something that I experienced slightly throughout my schooling. I feel like I enjoy the characters well enough. I don't particularly care about the main character. I like the love interest. His name is Seth. He was cute. He's just like a really cute, like, sweet cinnamon bun. Overall, this book is enjoyable. It's not like a favorite book, but obviously I liked it enough to reread it, and I do think reading books that feature feminism is very important. The next book I read, I never thought that I would say that I read this book, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I listened to this on audiobook, and I don't like Holly Black's books. I read a couple of them, didn't really like them, and so I just never planned on reading this one, and then I did. And the reason why I did is because of a reading vlog that I am doing, and that I'm not going to tell you guys what it is quite yet, because it's going to be a while before you can see it. So I'm not going to talk again about my feelings towards this book, but I did read it, and it's a thing that happened. I don't even know what this book's about, like how to describe it to you, so I'm not going to to, because I feel like everyone knows what this book is at this point, so we're just gonna move on. The next books that I read I'm also going to talk about fairly quickly because I've already talked about them on my channel. So I reread Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Take a Hint, Dani Brown, both by Talia Hibbert. These are the first and second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I reread these because Actor Age Eve Brown was coming out and I wanted to refresh my memory. Actually, no, that's not true. The main reason I wanted to reread them was just because I wanted to reread them, because it's a companion series. I don't need to reread them to refresh my memory. I was lying to you guys, I'm so sorry. But I love these books, and so I was really excited to reread them. They are adult romances. They are super fun. This one deals with the main character, Chloe. She has fibromyalgia, and after a near-death experience, she decides to create a Get a Life list to kind of get her out of her comfort zone, and she enlists the help of her superintendent named Red to help her complete this list. Then we have Take a Hint, Dani Brown, where our main character Dani is a workaholic, and she also has like no interest in falling in love. She kind of just wants to fool around with somebody. And then enters Zephyr, who works at the school that she works in as a security guard, and during a fire drill one day, Dani gets stuck in an elevator and he rescues her, and people take videos of them and it goes viral online. And so they decide to pretend to date for publicity reasons for this thing called Tackle It that he has going on, this like organization. They're really good books. I highly enjoy them. They're super steamy, super cute. I love the romances. I love the characters. Rereading these was super fun. I have a lot of tabs in them, which I really enjoy, so these ones are great. I highly recommend them, and I had a lot of fun rereading them, like a lot of fun rereading them. So the last book I want to talk about today is The Young Elites by Marie Lu. I listened to this on audio, and this has been a long time coming. If you know me at all, you know I love the Legend trilogy. It's right there, and so I was really excited initially to read this series by Marie Lu, but I DNF'd this book 2 times prior to me finally finishing it this time. I think I tried reading it physically first, couldn't get into it. So then I tried the audiobook, still couldn't get into it. I think I got a bit farther when I listened to the audiobook than when I read it physically, but either way, couldn't get into it, so I decided to just put it down and wait till I was more in the mood for it. I don't remember why I picked it up in March. I think I picked it up because I wanted to listen to something and the audiobook was available, so I was like, why not? I'll listen to it. I'm happy that I was finally able to push through and finish this book because I own the entire series behind me there, so I'm happy that I finally was able to read this book. Unfortunately, I didn't really like this book. I don't have a specific reasoning why. I just didn't really care for it, to be honest. I wish I had a specific reasoning why. Like, I wish that I could just like hate it or love it, you know? Like, I hate when I just feel like indifferent towards a book, 'cause it just feels so disappointing because I don't even know how to like describe why I don't like this book, because I don't have a specific reason. I just didn't like it. Like, I feel like it just didn't capture my attention in the way that I wanted it to, but I don't know how I wanted it to capture my attention. I just feel like there was no point throughout the book where I was like invested, or where I felt like I cared, or where I felt like I knew what was going on. I don't know. But as I was writing like the little review of it in my notebook here, it was a few days after I'd finished the book, and already like I had forgotten details about the story and I didn't know what had happened in it. So I was like, I don't even know how to write this review because I don't even know what happened in this book. Didn't really care for it. It's very unfortunate. I did decide to read The Rose Society, which is the second book, so you guys will hear about that in my next wrap up. But I did not care for this book, and it's very disappointing because obviously I love other Marie Lu books, and of course since I owned this entire series and did love her past books, I was also hoping that I would love this one, but unfortunately it was just not in the cards, and I am very sad about it, but it is what it is. Not every book can be a winner. So those are all the books that I read in the months of February and March. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know what you've read recently because I'd really love to know. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!